Howie Roseman thinks the Eagles are close.
He still believes.
Yeah, he does. Welcome on in. Sorry, music today? What a day. Howie and some music. Welcome on in. Midday Show. Hugh Douglas, Joe Gillo, Kyle Quinn behind the glass. 215-592-9494 on a Tuesday. Howard joins us in a little bit. Ross Tucker joins us. Lot to get to. Good morning, Hugh Douglas.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Philly. Hey, you know what, man? Y'all need to explain this to me, and y'all need to stop doing this. Y'all need to slow y'all ass running around in these parking lots, man. These high-rise parking lots and stuff. Y'all need to slow y'all ass down, especially in the morning, especially in the building that we in right now. Because every morning there was a little dude in like one of them little hatchback. They don't call them station wagons anymore. They call them like the crossover SUV types.
That sounds cooler, yeah.
Yeah, like so I'm pulling in, right? And I drive a big ass truck, and it takes me a minute to get around the corners because I don't want to turn them too tight because I mess around and mess up my truck. Dude just flying behind me like he in a hurry to get somewhere in a parking lot. Man, slow y'all butt down, man. That's not cool, man. It takes a little while for me to make them turn.
All right, some good advice from Hugh to start the show. And, you said something there, it takes a minute. And I think that's on top of all of our minds. Is it going to take the Eagles a minute, more or less, to get back to where we want? Are they close? I mean, really, that's the question on all of our minds. Are they close to being back to where these teams are right now? Are they close to being there? And look, I want them to be. I think we all a year from now. You know what I want? A year from now,
a Super Bowl.
I want you and I to be planning our trip, or someone to plan it for us, and us to get ready and packing our bags for Louisiana, for New Orleans. That's where I want to be.
John Ritchie haircut.
I love John's haircut. He's looking awesome. John looks good.
He looked like he's on the run from somebody who had to change his look.
He kind of does.
You know what I mean? Like he was living in the mountains, like, the cops, they're on to you.
They'll never find him now.
Yeah.
So, look, Hugh, a year from now, I want to be planning a trip. I want to be packing a suitcase. I want to be getting ready for a trip to Louisiana.
That would be great.
For a Super Bowl. What would that be, 59 or whatever the number would be next year? That's what I want. But as I look at the Eagles right now, I want them to be close, and perhaps I'll feel they are close, in 2 months after free agency, maybe 3 months after the draft. But here's what I see. I see a team that has questions now on the offensive line because we don't know what Jason Kelce's going to do. I see a team that needs multiple corners. I see a team that needs a safety, multiple linebackers, another wide receiver. They got to fix the quarterback, and we have a whole new offense with a new coordinator that has to implement this thing on the fly. I don't think they're particularly close on January 30th, 2024. I hope I feel differently in 2 months, maybe after free agency. But right now, even with the new coordinators, Hugh, I don't think they're close. Do you feel this team is close?
I feel they're close, Joe, before you even got out your mouth. I feel that they're
You're
close.
Ready.
And I'll tell you why. Because I feel like they have enough talent that their talent, if they have the right direction, if they've hired the right people. And I tell you what, it's funny because looking at all the coaching hires on the, like watching them on Instagram and everything, social media, it's almost like they're trying to assemble the Avengers. Did you see the no-neck coach that they got last night, Coach Hurts?
Yeah, I love him.
Looking like a big old Incredible Hulk or somebody.
Yeah, that dude whoops ass.
Yeah, he has no neck. I'm like, look at the coaches that they're trying to assemble the Avengers. They went out and got the big goober. They got the goober
Hulk?
guy from no.
Who's the goober?
Kellen Moore. Goober.
Oh, he's a goober.
We're keeping Goober going. We're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep that Goober.
He's on the goober line.
Yeah,
and then we got an Avenger from the Seahawks.
Yeah, but it's like they're assembling the Avengers. And I saw another coach from the Seahawks they were talking to coach the secondary.
Yep.
So it's like we're putting together a coaching staff that I feel like with Coach Fangio is going to make this defense, or at least not make this defense, but give this defense an identity that they're going to try to implement. Now, in order to implement that identity, you're going to have to go out and get some players. There's no question about that. Now, listen, I'm going to say this, and this is why I believe. I am not a financial guy. Y'all know numbers is not my strong suit. But when I look at this team, I don't know how it's going to get done, but if we go with the younger players and maybe get a couple guys out of free agency, I feel like we can get back there. And as far as offensive line is concerned, we can get by with that. I think we can get Jason Kelce to come back for a nice little piece of cheese. So I think the offensive line will be better. I think we can make that happen.
That changes things, certainly, if he comes back. If he does it, and right now, I think if
I'm optimistic. Now, I don't know the financial side of it, but I'm optimistic that we can go out and get enough people that we can get this thing going again.
So I am optimistic, and I believe in Howie. I just think there's a lot of work to do here. And I also think about this. There's not many teams in the NFC. The AFC, we know what goes on, right? It's the Chiefs every year. 6 straight years they go to the title game, and now obviously back to the Super Bowl with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. In the NFC, there's much less staying power. There just is. I mean, other than the 49ers, and when Rodgers was on the Packers, there's not any team in the NFC for years that have been in 2 out of 3 championship games, which is what we're asking the Eagles to do to get back to the Super Bowl. They got to get to a championship game first. It doesn't happen. It's like a who's who of who pops up and then falls back, whether it be the Falcons or the Panthers or the Eagles or the Saints. No one could sustain in the NFC other than the 49ers. I think it's a challenging thing to go back to this level that we're asking them to go to, and I just see a lot of work to be done. I mean, Howie better have, hopefully all the vacations were taken last summer, because Howie's got a lot of work to do the way I look at this roster. Hugh, if your instinct, if your gut is right that they may be able to convince Jason Kelce one more year, it would change my perspective, because here's the way I look at it. And you mentioned numbers. Obviously, we know where they draft. They have 3 picks in the first couple rounds. They have number 22 overall. There's only so many picks. There's only so much cap space.
Yes.
So here's what, the Kelce thing obviously is a big deal. If he leaves, they're probably going to have to use a resource on another offensive lineman. Whether it's a kid they play at guard next year and they move Juergens to center, whatever, however they do it. So that means that's one less pick to use on a corner or a linebacker or a safety. They only have so much here they could use to fix this team. I think they have more work to do, but the coordinator stuff certainly, I think, makes people feel better. People feel better today than they did a week ago because we have Vic Fangio here. We talked to Patrick Willis last week about how good of a coordinator he is. And then, of course, there's Kellen Moore. But there's stuff about Fangio out there. People wondering, does he still connect with players? Jaws had something interesting to say. Here's Jaws talking about Vic Fangio, what he's heard over the years about the new Eagles defensive coordinator.
I have connections as well around this league. And, I hear another side of that story, that there were some players on that defense that didn't want to work, didn't want to put the time in, didn't want to put the effort in, didn't want to make the commitment to be successful. Guys like to party at night, and South Beach is a really great place to party. And Vic tried to get those guys and push those guys to become harder workers and better athletes and more committed to their team. And he couldn't get through to those guys. So those are the guys that Vic was pushing, and they're the guys that are whining right now.
I love that. I mean, that was kind of your instinct, that maybe we shouldn't listen too much to the guys he just left in Miami. Look at the track record of Vic Fangio.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. Like, when I hear especially defensive players complain about stuff like that and not liking their coach or whatever, that's weird to me, because most defenders like working hard, pushing themselves. So it just was kind of odd. You hear offensive guys saying that, no disrespect to the offensive players, but sometimes they don't like to work hard, especially when you were talking about compare and contrasting down there with the Commodores when they were mad at Coach Bieniemy for coaching them hard. So, but when you hear defenders say that about a coach, a proven guy, you talk about when you look at his track record and you look at what he brings to the table and the players that he's coached, you look at that, and most guys get excited about stuff like that when they look at the track record. I remember when Jim Johnson came to us. He coached Mike Sinclair and Sam Adams, Cortez Kennedy. Like, you look at that, and I looked at that, I'm like, damn, he coached those guys. And the way and what else galvanized it for me was the year before he came to us, we played Seattle, and they beat the brakes off of us with that defense. They were blitzing from all over the place. So you get excited about things like that. So I kind of figured when I heard guys complaining about that's basically what it was.
Yeah, and I do feel, if you're thinking about what they've done over the last week, I do feel better about the direction of the team for next year based on the coordinators. I mean, that does give me a sense of good feeling. Vic Fangio has a great track record across the NFL for years and years and years. He's produced good defenses. And Kellen Moore, although, we could wonder about what happened last year in Los Angeles, and obviously Dak got better when he left, he also has a nice, track record early in his football coaching career of producing good offenses. So I feel better about the coaching staff. They're a better coaching staff today than they did a few minutes ago or recently, a week ago. But it's the roster. You know what I can't get out of my head as we have this conversation? And maybe I'm overreacting. I can't get the last 7 weeks of the season out of my head. I understand they were an 11-6 team and they were a playoff team. They also were a bottom 5 team in the league the last month plus of the season. Are we going to pretend that didn't happen and just like business as usual?
Yeah, that was fluke.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Part of that was because, for whatever reason, this defense, they quit. They gave up. The offense, I'm not even talking about the offense side of the ball. They had their own issues, which to this day, we went out and got all these coordinators and stuff, and I don't think we've addressed the elephant in the room. Because, number one, we don't know what the elephant in the room is. So I'm just going to focus on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, we
and
know
talk
what the
about-
elephant in the room is.
I don't know what the elephant in the room
okay,
is, Joe.
Here's the zoo animal in the room.
Speculation.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
don't know.
a whole lot of speculation.
I don't know if it's an elephant or not, but here's the zoo animal in the room. The quarterback didn't play well enough.
I mean, not only that, but it was some other stuff too.
Yeah, but his play it was not good enough. I mean, it was.
Yeah, he faltered down the stretch, but that question has not been answered. Why? Why did it happen? Why did this offense all of a sudden start sputtering? That question hasn't been answered. Now, we've had a whole bunch of sacrificial lambs in the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
We sacrificed the defensive coordinator, even though the offense was.
Well, we sacrificed two defensive players.
We both them, and then we sacrificed a relationship, a friendship between the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. So now we're going into a season, hopefully addressing the problems that we had, but I feel like we didn't address the elephant in the room.
Sacrifice is such a strong word.
Bring forth the
It
sacrificial
is
lamb.
well, that's part of why I don't think this is close. Or is all of this stuff they've done, and really they've hired two coordinators. Is that going to fix everything?
I hope so. So you're asking me, do I believe and believe and hope kind of like the same thing?
Yeah, they
to
are.
me?
Well, yeah, they're similar.
Kind of the same.
Similar.
So I hope that is fixed, but do I believe it? Yeah, I kind of do. But then again, I kind of don't.
Yeah, well,
because it's like this is the problem. We have not addressed the underlying issues with the team. Now we've addressed the football problems. We've addressed those.
We
haven't addressed.
Staff, yeah.
There's something else here. There's something else here that has not been addressed. And hopefully this offseason, people getting away from each other, maybe it'll get better. I mean, it doesn't usually work that way, especially in relationships, but you hope it does.
Sometimes it does. Distance,
what you mean, just space?
Well, space, and you come back and your cooler
you
heads
come back
prevail.
and then, something happens and that the same issues rise. So
well, that does happen.
This is why I couldn't stand this mug in the first place.
I knew it. All right, 215-592-9494. Perhaps in 2 months, perhaps after the NFL draft or the first wave of free agency, I'll sit here and say, you know what? The Eagles are back. I believe they're going to the Super Bowl next year. I don't feel that way today. I'm looking at a team that has a whole at offensive line, corner, safety, linebacker, wide receiver, and the quarterback was the 20th ranked passer in the league this year. That's a lot of things for Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio to come in here with magic wands and fix. 215-592-9494. Let's go to the phone lines here. Do you believe the Eagles are close? And you know what we mean when we say that. Close to being, in this round. Close to being a Super Bowl team once again.